Sindhu Ramanujasya Charano Sharanam Prapatti. So Ramanuja Acharya's pastimes, the philosophy given by Ramanuja Acharya will be taught to us now by Kamalochan Prabhuji. He has joined. So I'm unmuting myself. Kamalochan Prabhuji will be giving the class. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So Sripad Ramanuja Acharya's disappearance day, right? And very interesting to know that once Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was asked by one devotee that what is the connection between us and Ramanuja Acharya? That is, what is the connection between Gaudiya Vaishnavism and Ramanuja Siddhanta? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told, or Bhaktivinoda Thakur told, that Ramanuja Sampradaya, Chaitanya Premer Mandir Bhitti Swarup. Ramanuja Sampradaya is the foundation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. So just I can understand how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted all the four Sampradayas as a foundation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu built a wonderful temple of love of God by accepting Ramanuja's philosophy as a foundation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu originally gave two principles to each Sampradaya. Two principles that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Ramanuja are Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti means pure devotional service. And pure devotional service and Jnana Karma Rahita Bhakti, that is Jnana Karma, pure devotional service. And he gave one more thing, that is Vaishnava Seva. These are two most prominent things which are seen even in our Vaishnava Sampradaya, in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. All the Acharyas, they are given their philosophy on the Vedanta Sutras. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually originally gave these philosophies to four Acharyas: Ramanuja, Madhva, Nimbaraka, and Vishnaswami. The same principles which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to these four Acharyas were taken by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he came back and established his Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy contains all the other four philosophies. It is Ramanuja's philosophy, Vishishtadvaita. Madhvacharya's philosophy, that is Dvaita. Nimbaraka's philosophy, that is Dvaita Advaita. And Vishnaswami's philosophy, that is known as Shuddha Advaita. When you study these four philosophies, you'll find that there's a lot of differences within them. Why are differences within them? All four should be Vaishnava philosophies. How is it that we have differences in these Vaishnava philosophies? It should be the same. That is how we should know that though there are differences in these four philosophies, There are similarities. The fundamental concepts of all the four philosophies are same. That is, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Bhakti is the only way. Accepting the spiritual master is the only way to attain Krishna. Surrender, Supreme Lord. These are basic tenets are all same. But there are some differences in the details. Why the differences are there in the details? It is because of Rasa Bheda. The difference in philosophies are known as Siddhanta Bheda. The Siddhanta Bheda is there because of Rasa Bheda. Rasa Bheda means the difference, distinction in rasa. Like you are there as a person, somebody sees you as a brother, somebody sees you as a son, somebody sees you as a husband. But you're the same person. In the same way, Krishna is one person. But one Krishna is seen by different people in different ways. That means in different rasas. Because of that, there are so many differences in the philosophies to support that particular rasa. Now, when we are talking about Sripad Ramanuja Acharya, we should know the name of his philosophy first. The name of Ramanuja's philosophy is Vishishtadvaita. It's a very, very unique philosophy because it is the first philosophy in the after Shankara to defeat the Mayavad. Basically, all the four philosophies, they are not only establishing Krishna consciousness in different rasas, but they also defeat one philosophy called Mayavad. One of the interesting aspects of the four philosophies is they have a common enemy. Though they have internal difference between them, four Vaishnava Siddhantas, but they have one common enemy. Like the enemy of an enemy is your friend, isn't it? You have an enemy, and that enemy has another enemy. So you both become friends because you have a common enemy. There's another way of integrating all the four philosophies. Because all the four philosophies are Vaishnava philosophies. And there is a common enemy for all of us, all the four Vaishnava philosophies. So Ramanuja philosophy is Vishishtadvaita. Now the word Advaita means what? Non-difference. Ramanuja accepts non-difference, but with a speciality within them, a specialized non-difference. They say, yes, everything is Brahman, but still there is difference. There is some distinction in Brahman. So in this way, Ramanuja said, what Shankara told word is true, but it's not complete understanding of Brahman. It is not the complete understanding of the Supreme Lord. Just saying the Supreme Lord is Brahman is not enough. You have to see that the Supreme Lord has the living entities and the world as his body. So when you call somebody, you see somebody, when you call somebody, you see the person as one unit. He has got body, grass body. He has got a subtle body and the soul. So, but all the things is one unit. So it is Advaita. But that doesn't mean everything is one in that. The grass body is different. The subtle body is different. The soul is different. So there is distinction. So there is distinction in oneness. Ramanuja stressed the oneness with distinction. That is why he is called, this philosophy is called Advaita. But what kind of Advaita? Specialized Advaita. Vishesha means specialities. Advaita with speciality is known as Vishishtadvaita. So Ramanuja Acharya says there is Chit, Achit and Ishvara. All three are different. How they are different? Because they are distinct in their qualities. How can you distinguish between two substances only based on qualities? Like you have a tab, you have a mobile phone. Both seems to be the same, but there are some distinctions in that. Even in the you got one what is it called? A computer, and you have a TV. They seem to be the same, but they're not exactly the same. There is some distinction in that. So Ramanuja Acharya says that this matter, spirit and controller, Chit and Achit, Ishvara, they are one because they work as one unit. They are one because they work as one unit. When you say somebody come here, do you think the soul only comes? No. The soul, body, and the subtle body, gross body, subtle body, all of them come together. So there is a harmony between them. That is why they are one unit. So there is a distinction, at the same time, there is harmonious oneness. That is why the distinction is because of their qualities. And oneness is because there is harmony within them. So that is why the whole philosophy is being described as Vishishtadvaita. Now, Srimad Ramanuja Acharya, he establishes one very important point in his philosophy. That is, he says there is a relationship between the substance and the quality. And the quality of the substance cannot be separated from the quality. The quality is an integral aspect of the substance. So, if you say God, he must be having qualities. And now he writes a big commentary. Actually, before he became an Acharya, a sannyasi, he wrote a essay on commenting on Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, a very famous statement in the Upanishads. His guru Yadav Prakash, he was giving a Mayavad commentary to it, saying that Satyam Jnanam Anantam, these three are Brahman. Brahma is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, knowledge, eternity, and bliss. He is Brahman. But Ramanuja says, no, they are not Brahman. They are the qualities of Brahman. And these qualities are inseparable from Brahman, inseparable from God. That is how the God can be distinguished from others, especially knowledge. The living entity, though gets the knowledge as good as God, but he cannot be called God because knowledge of creation, maintenance, and destruction are not found in the living entity. In this way, the living entity is distinct from the Supreme Lord because the qualities of the living entities are different from the qualities of the Supreme Lord. And he comes to the point of explaining how Sharira, Shariri, Sambandha. How there is connection between the Supreme Lord and the living entity. Like there is a connection between the soul and the body. Though the soul is within the body, the soul is untouched by the body. But it is only because of the soul, the body is able to do all its functions. So the concept of Sharira, Shariri, Sharira means body, Shariri means one who is possessing the body. Shariri is actually the Supreme Lord, and Sharira is a living entity in the material world. So, as Atma is for bodies, subtle body and gross body, the same way the Supreme Lord is the Atma for the soul and living entities and the Supreme Lord. So this is how the whole Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta is based on this concept of Sharira, Shariri, Bheda. Adhara and Adheya uses another word to explain further. One is Adhara, the Supreme Lord is Adhara. And Adheya, that means that something which is sustained. The sustainer and the sustained. And he goes another word, he says, Niyanta Niyamya. One is Niyanta, controller, and other is controlled. And he uses another word, Seshi and Sesha. Seshi and Sesha. One who is independent, other is dependent. So, by using this example of body and soul, Sripad Ramanuja Acharya explains the distinction between the Supreme Lord and the living entity, the Supreme Lord and the material world. And he gives a very elaborate commentary, even in the Bhagavad Gita, on 2nd chapter, 12th verse. And exactly, Sripad, the Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu copies Ramanujacharya's commentary on that. So Prabhupada exactly translates the commentary given by Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu onto this 2.12, where Krishna tells Arjuna that, Arjuna, you, me, and I, Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa, nachaiva vishyamaha sarve vayamataparam. So here, Ramanuja explains that how the Supreme Lord, the living entity, and the living entity is a distinction. But now somebody may say, when Ramanuja has established this kind of distinction between the Supreme Lord and the living entity, it is Dvaita. But Sripad Madhvacharya, he rejects this example of Sharira and Shariri, because he says Dvaita is not completely established. That distinction between the Supreme Lord and the living entity is much more than the Sharira Bhava, Sharira and Shariri Bhava. Because the soul is in the body and there is some kind of connection. That means the soul may have the attributes of the Supreme Lord, and also the Supreme Lord may have the attributes of the soul that is getting bound to the samsara. So there should be complete distinction. To establish the distinction, Sripad Madhvacharya gives the philosophy called Bimba Pratibimba Vada. There is a reflection and reflected object. There is object and reflection. So the reflection has no connection with the object. They are two distinct things. So there is a subtle difference in their argument and argue on or to establish Dvaita. But ultimately, both are established the same thing called the Dvaita philosophy. And then Sripad Ramanujacharya, he has very interesting another thing. He says that how that we say, I know. When you say Brahman is Chit, means consciousness. Consciousness means to be aware. So when you are aware of something, that means there are two different things here. The person who is aware and the thing which is aware about. So if the Mayavadis say that Brahman is consciousness and there's nothing else in this world to be conscious of, even though Brahman is conscious, if nothing else is there to be conscious of, what is the use of that being conscious? It is as good as that matter. So this is the biggest bomb which Ramanuja used on the Mayavad philosophy. So he just gives a very simple logic. Whereas Madhva gives a very complicated logic for it. Ramanuja gives very simple logic. And he says that, okay, I know what? Myself. Achha, you know yourself. Huh? That means there is a process of knowing and there is distinction. You know yourself means you know that I exist. So there is a process. So Ramanuja establishes this point of distinction between the living entity, the Supreme Lord, and the material nature by because Brahman is conscious. If Brahman is conscious, then naturally there should be kind of a distinction between the knowledge, object of knowledge, the person who knows it. Now, Ramanuja Acharya, while talking about the living entity, he says that the living entity is conscious. The Jiva knows. And not only he knows, but he is knowledge, both. So this is what Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu clearly accepts directly from Ramanujacharya. And he says, the soul is conscious as well as is consciousness. He's conscious as well as consciousness. Conscious means what? He's aware, okay, of heat, light, cold, etc. And he is consciousness itself, condensed form of consciousness. He gives the example of a lamp and its luminosity. There's a lamp which has got a fire. Of course, there's light coming from the lamp. And what is that lamp made up of? Fire. What is that fire? Condensed form of light and heat. So the lamp or the fire is the condensed form of heat and light. Not only it is the condensed form of heat and light, it is emanating light. So these are certain principles of Ramanuja's philosophy. Now, when Ramanuja Acharya talks about the world, he says that world, this material world, is nothing but the body of the Lord. Like whatever happens in the body, you are aware of it. For example, you have pain in the leg, you're aware of it. In the same way, the Supreme Lord is pervading the entire world and is aware of everything. Abhigna Swarat. So these are the certain things which Ramanujacharya specifically spoke to defeat the philosophy of the Mayavad. Now, when it comes to certain differences between Ramanuja's philosophy and Madhva's philosophy, this is like this. Sripad Ramanujacharya, one of my followers of Ramanujacharya, he says, Vedanta Deshika says, if somebody is not able to really accept, our philosophy, that is Vishishtadvaita philosophy, there is an option. Option is you go and take shelter of Ananda Tirtha. Go and take shelter for Anandatirtha. So here, Sripad Ramanuja Acharya, he says that Sharanagati is the only process of attaining Supreme Lord. Bhakti is secondary to Sharanagati. So this is one of the unique features of the process of Ramanuja, given by Ramanuja Acharya. Prapatti. Prapatti is the topmost. Just surrender. Because bhakti means that you are doing, you are endeavoring. You think that by my bhakti, by my endeavor, I'll attain God. So there is an aspect of ahankara in it. That is, I am somebody, I can do. But in prapatti, complete dependence on the Supreme Lord is not like that. So Ramanujacharya places surrender, prapatti, to be beyond the practice of devotional service or the Vaidhi Bhakti. Complete surrender. That is what is Ramanujacharya describes. Ramanujacharya's philosophy of explaining the Upanishads, that is very interesting. Ramanujacharya says there are two kinds of Shrutis, three kinds of Shrutis. Shruti means the Upanishads. Veda Shruti, Abheda Shruti, and Ghataka Shruti. Some Upanishads talk about Veda, distinction. The Supreme Lord and the living entity are two different things. That is Dvaita. And some Shrutis, they talk about the Supreme Lord and the living entity being one and the same. That is Advaita, Abheda Shruti. Sripad Ramanujacharya says, the other third kind of Shruti is called the Ghataka Shruti. Ghataka means which talks and harmonizes things. And Ramanuja says that Ghataka Shrutis have to be accepted as Shrutis which gives one extreme and other Shrutis gives other extreme, Advaita and Advaita. Ramanuja says that those Shrutis, those mantras in the Upanishads, which actually talk about both distinction between the Supreme Lord and the living entity, both oneness of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, they have to be accepted as the topmost. When it comes to Ramanuja, when it comes to Shankaracharya, he gave more importance to the Advaita Shrutis, where the distinction is not spoken. The non-difference between the living entity and the Supreme Lord is spoken. And Sripad Shankaracharya, he goes to so much of critical Sanskrit scholarship to explain the Shrutis which talk about the distinction between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. And he tries to prove Advaita even in the Dvaita Shrutis. Whereas Madhvacharya did the exactly opposite. He accepted Dvaita Shrutis as it is, and when it comes to Advaita Shrutis, he goes to a lot of complicated grammatical explanation, commentaries to establish how it is Dvaita. But Ramanuja says, no, everything should be accepted as it is, but still, those scriptures which actually harmonizes both the distinction as well as the non-difference, difference and the non-difference, they should give it more prominence. We don't have to go to complicated grammatical rules to try to mold the scriptures. Give your own commentary to the scriptures. Just accept as they are. But he said preferences are always there. There is the Ghataka Shrutis, they should be placed in the topmost level. and other two are only secondary. They are not the primary. In this way, Ramanuja has his own way of describing this thing. See, Father Ramanuja's philosophy, he says, among all the Puranas, the topmost is the Vishnu Purana. That is their philosophy, that is their understanding. Because Vishnu Purana is written by Parashara. Vyasa, when he wrote all the Puranas, when he came to the Vishnu Purana, he wanted to write his Vishnu Purana, and he thought, why he should write? It is so perfect, the Vishnu Purana written by my father, so I don't require to write any other Purana because it is perfect in its nature. And the way Vishnu Purana describes the superiority of Vishnu, no other Purana talks about it. So Vishnu Purana becomes the topmost of all the scriptures. Sripad Ramanuja Acharya's another interesting part is Ubhaya Vedanta. He says whatever are there in the Vedas are described in the Divya Prabandhas. So we should give equal importance to both the Puranas, the Vedantas, the Vedas, and the Divya Prabandhas. So this is Ramanuja's philosophy, and he says that anybody who is following the Sri Vaishnavism, they should read both and quote from both to establish the philosophy. That is the Sanskrit, Vedanta Sutras, the Upanishads, and the Vedas, and the Divya Prabandhas given by the Alvas. So this is another uniqueness of Ramanuja's philosophy, that is giving equal importance to both Dravida Veda. Dravida Veda means Divya Prabandhas, and the Vedas of Gauda, means North. It was written by Vyasa in Badari. So in this way, he gives importance to both the. Now, when it comes to world, how this world has been created, how this world came into existence. Ramanuja Acharya, he says that God, Supreme Lord, is the source of everything. In what way is the source of everything? He is the cause of everything. He is both the material cause and the efficient cause, or the immediate cause. In this way, he uses this word transformation. God himself transformed into this world. So this is where Madhvacharya, he says, how can God transform himself into this world? So this is a big problem in the Vishishtadvaita philosophy, which is not very clearly explained. What God himself transforming into this world. Because now Madhvacharya asks this question, how matter can be part of God? So for that, Srimad Ramanuja Acharya, he doesn't clearly state the energy aspect of it. God's energies are being transformed. So later Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the other Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas clearly talk about how what transforms is not God himself. What transforms is the energy of God. In this way, Ramanuja Acharya, he did not speak much about this aspect because he concentrated more on the prapatti, that is complete surrender. So these are some distinctions between the philosophies which are there. Of course, Ramanuja Acharya, he talks about the souls being attributes or the quality of God. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and even Madhvacharya accepted the souls, living entities, being the energy. So one says it is energy, other says it is quality. Ramanuja says the souls or the living entities are the qualities of God. And Madhva and Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they claim the living entities are the energy of God. Ramanuja Acharya at the time, influence of Advaita was so much so that he defeated the Mayavad philosophy. But he gave some scope for them because he wanted to attract even those Advaitins to the fold of Vaishnavism. So he gave a scope of the non-difference, stressed on little bit of non-difference. But the basis of the non-difference is actually the distinction, Dvaita. So he covered the Dvaita, which is its basis of his philosophy, with a nice quote of non-difference, Advaita, and gave a special commentary to that Advaita and established his philosophy of Vishishta Advaita. So this is the philosophy of Ramanuja Acharya in nutshell. That is Sesha, Seshi, Sharira, Shariri, Adhara, Adeya. This is what we can talk about the philosophy of Ramanuja Acharya. Okay, any questions?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining it. So my query is, Visishta Advaita comes in between Advaita and Dvaita, but in all the three philosophies, in where is it established that the Jivera Swarupa He Krishna and Nityadas? So the servant concept was introduced or was propounded in which philosophy, Prabhuji, for the first time? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
In the Ramanuja Sampradaya, when they get this Samashrayam, they give the name also as Dasa. So the concept of the living entity being servant of Krishna, that is eternally established in Vaishnavism. There is no argument about it. In all the four Vaishnava philosophies, it is there. The Lord, the living entity servant of Krishna. But the difference is about the nature of living entity. Is the living entity Shakti of the Supreme Lord? Is the living entity attribute of the Supreme Lord? Is the living entity a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord? If it is part and parcel, how it is part and parcel? Is the living entity completely different or it is one? So these subtle philosophical points are described by four different acharyas in different ways. But nobody argues whether the living entity is servant of Krishna or not. No argument on that. Whether Vishnu is the Supreme Lord or not, there is no argument on that. It is by default. When you say Vaishnava philosophy, it means Krishna is the Supreme Lord, living entity is servant. That is why in the beginning of the class, already I told that there are some basic tenets which they don't even argue about it. It has to be accepted. That is, the living entity is servant of the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is this They must. But now, what is the nature of the living entity? That is the how is it that the Supreme Lord is connected to the living entity? The theology part, there are some differences. Like how this world has been created. Nobody argues that the Krishna has created this world or not. Yes, Krishna has only created, but how has he created? What is the nature of this world? How this world is connected to the Supreme Lord? How they have to explain one example. Like the snake and the coil. Now the snake and the coil. Is there any difference between them? The snake only becomes the coil when the snake goes around, round, and makes a coil out of it. Is it snake or coil? Tell me. So somebody says it's coil, but the coil is formed by the snake. That means the snake has become the coil, but the coil is not the snake. So this is how the theology goes on. Just by saying that living in the servant of Krishna, it is going to explain only one aspect of it, the essential aspect of it. But in philosophy, you just cannot tell one thing and then be quiet. You have to go in depth and then explain how it is, how the living entity is servant of Krishna. Why not Krishna? Who is that Krishna? What you're talking about? Because Brahman is attributeless, Nirakara, Nirvikara, Nirvishesha. These are the words found in the Upanishads. They have to be explained. So in this way, your question of where did that servant Bhava started? It is established an eternal fact, accepted by all the four Vaishnava philosophies. There is no question in the beginning of it. Okay. Okay. Stop here. Okay. Yes, some more questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I'm not understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji comes 520 years back, approximate, and Ramanuja Acharya, Madhvacharya, they are come, I think 800 or 900 years ago. So then how the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the knowledge to them?
Very interesting question. For that, you should know that there are two kinds of leelas. So before I ask this, I'll ask you a question. Is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu still in Navadvip or not?
Yes, he is in the Navadvip.
He's in Navadvip. But if you go there, can you see him?
No.
So how is he in Navadvip when you're not able to see? Because he's still doing pastimes in Navadvip. Those pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are known as Aprakat Leela. Is Prakat Leela and Aprakat Leela. 1,000 years back when Ramanuja went to Navadvip, there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramanuja met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Aprakat Leela. So all the four Acharyas met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip in their Mahaprabhu's Aprakat Leela. And there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives instructions. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we are very fortunate to hear from Kamalochan Prabhuji on a very wonderful day. Ramanuja Acharya, who has given such a wonderful philosophy, Sri Sampradaya, which is one of the most important Sampradayas. So Prabhuji taught us very nicely. So we are all grateful to Prabhuji. Let us all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Kamalochan Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.